Part 32. Fantasy, me. Create a secret building at the beginning. Author, Mavericks Flying. Chapter 311. Boom. Chaos Riot. As the terrifying figure outside the Tianyuan world approached step by step, huge cracks opened in the sky, as if the world was about to collapse. The black cracks seemed to be connected to hell, dark and dense. An inexplicable power flows outward, swallowing up the source of heaven and earth, and its demonic power is like a prison. This breath. The ancestor of the golden crow staggered back, his eyes widened, and deep in his eyes, there was a look of disbelief. Immortal. He squeezed out one word with difficulty. Immortal. This word has been around for a long time in the Tianyuan world. I don't know when it was spread. Countless years have passed. Even those who have just entered the world of cultivation know that immortal means supreme. But knowing is one thing, seeing it with your own eyes is another thing. For countless epochs, there has never been an ancient book that clearly recorded the existence of immortals. Over time, countless people thought this was just a fabricated lie. Until the creatures from the earthly immortal realm came down. The existence of immortals was completely confirmed. What the Golden Crow Patriarch and Yekong never expected was that an immortal would actually come from the blood demon realm. This is too scary. The opponent collapsed before he came over. Broken the space channel. What does this mean? Are you planning to come and not leave? In the Tianyuan realm, only the original poster became an immortal. How could an immortal appear in this blood demon realm? This is impossible. Yekong shouted coldly. He looked at the figure in the distance with a stern expression. Before the other party came over, it gave him a huge pressure. It's hard to imagine what would happen if the other party crossed over. Situation. He is not a fairy. The ancestor of the Golden Crow held the jade slip in his hand, his face was pale, and he murmured he is a half-step true immortal. This is what the senior poster said, and he can't be wrong. Half-step to true immortality. Yekong also looked ugly. According to what the seniors said, this person is called the Burying Emperor. He has sacrificed blood to the entire blood demon world. His strength is infinitely close to that of a true immortal. There is no way that you and I can resist it. As the Golden Crow Emperor spoke, his body slowly retreated. He stared at the terrifying figure in the chaos with unblinking eyes. The moment I saw the news about my junior, he already had the intention of quitting. Things were so unexpected. This zombie emperor was worthy of his name. It was no wonder that he would take the initiative to destroy the space passage, because the blood demon realm was gone. Whether this space channel continues to exist or not is of little significance. If he comes, I'm afraid it will cause endless disaster. Yekong stretched out one hand and held it in the air. A black spurge, glowing with jet-black luster, broke through the sky, stirred up the wind and clouds in the sky, and landed in the palm of his hand. The moment the spurge appeared, the Emperor's power filled the air. When it came out, just a wisp of breath crushed the boundless earth. Countless mountains turned into powder. The stars in the sky trembled, as if they would collapse in the next second. Yekong, what are you going to do? The ancestor of the Golden Crow clan shouted. He didn't expect that at this time, Yekong would actually take the initiative. Isn't this looking for death? How can I know the gap between me and him if I haven't fought before? Yekongan said in a cold voice. His halberd was flying across the sky, his long hair was flying, and his robes were making a hunting sound. He raised his steps and crushed the void at once. He wanted to rush out of the boundary and fight with the opponent. But he hadn't walked out yet. In the chaos, the majestic figure suddenly stopped. He stood in the chaos, looking down at the entire Tianyuan world. He was very majestic, swallowing mountains and rivers with anger. The sun and moon were falling in his eyes, and the whole universe was trembling under his feet. Boom. No movement was seen. There was a loud noise. A kind of heaven collapsing sound came from the chaos, which was so shocking that people's souls were about to collapse. Yekong and the Golden Crow Patriarch turned pale at the same time, and their minds were agitated, and they almost failed to stabilize the Taoist platform. They were extremely shocked. Some couldn't believe it. They didn't expect that the gap between themselves and the others and the burial emperor was so huge. Before they took action, Yekong's side was already at a disadvantage based on his momentum alone. The Emperor of Heaven did not say a word and stood there quietly. There was an atmosphere all over his body, and there was even an ancient meaning that shocked people's hearts. If there was nothing else, all the heavens and worlds seemed to be resonating, and the worship of the gods came. The sound. A real dragon dances horizontally, a fairy phoenix spreads its wings, a white tiger leaps into the air, and a unicorn raises its head, surrounding him like the most loyal guard. Guards are surrounding his body. Click. Click. A crisp sound came. In the shocked eyes of Jinwu Patriarch and Yekong, the Tianyuan realm was rapidly disintegrating. Every creature felt creepy. As powerful as the great emperor, they all noticed that their own essence was flowing out. Countless people, all the mountains and rivers turned into powder, and the essence contained in them turned into streams of light and submerged into the body of the burial emperor. At this moment, all the creatures above the saints in the Tianyuan world were horrified. The more powerful, the more you can feel it. There is an extremely terrifying aura that is rapidly getting stronger and expanding violently as if there is no limit. What is he doing? The ancestor of the Golden Crow was extremely horrified. He saw that in just a few moments, a large area of the Tianyuan world had turned into a dead place, and countless creatures had turned into bones. There is a mysterious power between heaven and earth. The flow seems to be entangled with the years, stripping away everything. If any living thing touches it, it will turn into withered bones in an instant, and finally become dust. Is it possible that he wants to destroy the Tianyuan world and allow himself to become a true immortal? The ancestor of the Golden Crow spoke again. He wanted to leave now, but it was already too late. There was an inexplicable force surrounding him. Even invisible, he could feel a terrifying gaze staring at him. Once he wanted to escape, the next step is bound to be a thunderous blow. But if you don't escape, the next step will be a situation of boiling frogs in warm water, and you will definitely inevitably end up falling. He wants to seize everything in the Tianyuan world and then become an immortal in the chaos. Yekong seemed to have thought of something, and said in a deep voice. The burial emperor, after experiencing the blood devil world, he has realized that the blood devil world will only restrict himself, and he even suspects that the Tianyuan world will also restrict himself. Therefore, he did not intend to enter the Tianyuan world, but just walk to the edge, and then destroy the entire Tianyuan world, seizing the essence of the world and opening a supreme path for himself. Laugh. 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 The rays of light flew up into the sky and disappeared into the sky. It was as brilliant as a hanging Milky Way. It fell from the sky and rushed to the outside of the territory, burying the entire emperor zombie. This is completely the essence of heaven and earth, and it is the origin of a world. If they are all taken away by Emperor Zhang Tian, the best situation for the Tianyuan world is to enter the age of ending law. If it is even close, there is a possibility of annihilation. Maybe, the Tianyuan world will follow the old path of the blood demon world. Fantasy, me. Create a secret building at the beginning. Author, Mavericks Flying. Chapter 312. There is no way to become an immortal in chaos. If he does this, he will only ruin the Tianyuan world. Yekong looked at the chaos, his energy and blood roared all over his body, and his long hair flew up. At this moment, his momentum reached its peak. We can't stop him. The ancestor of the Golden Crow shook his head. Ordinary people would never dare to think about becoming an immortal in chaos. At their level, they cannot transcend the world and lose the barrier of the world. Once they fall into chaos, without the support of spiritual energy, they will return to nothingness in a short time. If you want to walk freely in chaos, you must at least be a true immortal or above. Of course. This is just walking. As for cultivation, or even breakthrough, don't even think about it. But this burial emperor, but he had to go against the will of heaven and find his own way in the chaos. It simply broke the worldview of countless people. If you want to stop the move of the burial emperor, you must, only the owner of Tianji can take action. Finally, the Golden Crow ancestor added. Yakong was immediately stunned. He clenched the euphorbia in his palms, with no concealment of murderous intent, and looked at the figure in the chaos with unblinking eyes. At this time, the distance between the two sides was only 10 million. In the eyes of ordinary cultivators, the distance is extremely far, but in the eyes of the emperor, it is almost as close as being close at hand. If you want to attack, one breath is enough to kill you in front of you. But even at such a close distance, it is as if it was like a chasm, and it was difficult for ordinary people to cross it. Because, 4 powerful creatures rushed out from around the zombie emperor, all of them had heaven-defying combat power. They were so terrifying that they seemed to be crowded with the entire chaos. The real dragon roared, and the 9 heavens trembled. The immortal phoenix is in nirvana, its gorgeous feathers are like a divine sword, splitting the sky. The white tiger roars, roaring to pieces of the mountains and rivers. The unicorn collides, the sun falls and the moon falls. 4 ferocious beasts that look like gods crowd the sky and the earth. Killing them together, the scene is extremely shocking. These are ancient races that can be seen in many worlds. In almost any world, these races can occupy a dominant position. Even if they cannot rule the world, they can still dominate one side. Such powerful one's race. Now they are all gathered around the zombie emperor. It is simply unbelievable. Chaos energy is raging, this place has a myriad of atmospheres, essences are flying across the sky, and all 4 spirits have appeared, emitting a boundless auspicious light, covering this place. It is like the Emperor of Heaven is patrolling the lower realms, all around the spirit is guarding everywhere. Can't wait any longer. Yakong glanced at the world around him. In a short period of time, within millions of miles, the mountains collapsed, the essence was drained, and the Tianyuan world continued to decline at a speed visible to the naked eye. If it is not stopped, the Tianyuan world will continue to decline. The world may really be over. Kill! Yakong shouted, his hair flying. He took one step forward, withstanding the might of the buried emperor, and rushed into the chaos. He didn't believe how terrifying the opponent could be when they broke through. Once the opponent moved, which means that his breakthrough has been interrupted. But if the opponent does not move, he will inevitably resist his own offensive. No matter how strong he is, he will be seriously injured after 1 or 2 resistances. No matter what kind. The purpose of representing Yakong was achieved. Boom! All kinds of fairy lights burst out, one after another, and the auspicious energy is overwhelming, which can make people's souls resonate until they are shattered. As soon as Yakong comes up, it is a decisive blow, all kinds of secret techniques come out, and the 4 spirits are fiercely fought. The scene is very terrible and bloody. The whole chaos seemed to be boiling. A black halberd cracked the sky, and was held in Yakong's hand. He fought against the immortal phoenix, making a clanging sound, and the bright feathers broke into pieces. Phoenix blood is shocking. Yakong. The ancestor of the golden crow uttered 2 words. When the words came out, it was already too late. Yakong had already taken action, and it was impossible to escape from the battle easily. So impulsive. He shook his head helplessly. Not to mention the burial emperor, even the 4 spirits around him are not easy to deal with. These 4 creatures don't look like living creatures, but more like they were forcibly condensed by some means. Both have the fighting power of the great emperor. It's hard to imagine how the emperor buried the sky did it. How can a person who can do such a trick be an easy person? We haven't figured out the other party's trump card yet, so if we act rashly, no matter how we look at it, it's a situation where you lose more than you win. After all, from the outside, the zombie emperor's strength surpasses them by a lot. I don't know what the situation is like with the senior poster. The ancestor of the Golden Crow stood in the void, and a jade slip appeared in his hand. He glanced at the battle situation not far away, and murmured the senior poster should already know everything that happened here just as he took out the jade slip. Simple. When I want to ask my juniors. His expression suddenly froze, and then he sighed softly and reluctantly put down the jade slip. From just now to now, his junior has only sent 2 messages, which are not normal at all. Now he glanced at the jade slip and he immediately understood. It's not that the younger generation doesn't want to contact him, but that this world is imprisoned. No outside news can come in. Inside information cannot be spread at all. The zombie emperor not only wants to devour the Tianyuan realm, but even the creatures in the Tianyuan realm are unlikely to be spared, and he and Yekong are the first targets he targets. No need to think. Now he understands it too. It's hard for him to leave this world. Well, after all, we still need to fight. The ancestor of the Golden Crow sighed again, and took a step forward. Golden light burst out from his body, like a blazing sun reappearing between heaven and earth. The terrifying temperature and the scorching void were distorting. He looked back at Tianyuan world and murmured a sound. I hope, senior poster, you can discover everything here earlier. The words fell. A long cry came out. The Golden Crow clan reappears in the world. The huge body covered thousands of miles, spread its wings, and the strong wind shook the 9 heavens. A golden bell broke through the void and suppressed the heaven and the earth. This is the Demon Emperor bell. It was not the imperial weapon that the ancestor of the Golden Crow had just sacrificed. The moment the Demon Emperor bell appeared, its terrifying power moved up the 9 heavens and down the 9 netherworld, causing all the demons in the world to kneel down and bow their heads. It's as if an ancient demon emperor has been resurrected and wants to rule the world. Since there is no way to escape, the ancestor of the Golden Crow simply gave up everything and planned to fight with all his strength and join forces with Yekong. Even if he could not defeat the Burial Emperor, he could still save the Tianyuan world. It can be regarded as doing one's best. After all, the Golden Crow clan is also a member of the Tianyuan world. When the Tianyuan world is in danger, the rift between the human and demon clans is no longer a big deal. Boom. Several emperor-level beings fought in the chaos. It was a cruel battle. Yekong and the Golden Crow Patriarch tried their best to fight with several creatures. The chaos exploded, and there was endless fairy light. It swept across the boundless void. Billions of laws intertwined here, as if they were creating the world. The scene was extremely terrifying. The 2 great emperors fought for the Tianyuan realm. It was foreseeable. This battle will definitely be recorded in the annals of history in the future. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Fantasy, me. Create a secret building at the beginning. Author, Mavericks Flying. Chapter 313. At the same time. Outside Dawang City. 2 figures flew over and stood in the void. Senior Shang, this is Dawang City, and the senior poster lives in Tianji Tower. Baikan Hung said softly. While he was on the road, he had some contact with Shang Duxing. From the conversation, it can be seen that not everyone in the Blood Demon clan is bloodthirsty, warlike, and cruel. This Shang Duxing, he is obviously an alternative to the Blood Demon clan and is relatively gentle. Dawang City. Shang Duxing stood side by side with Baikan Hung. He raised his eyes and looked at the city floating in the void. It was said to be a city. But in fact, it was more appropriate to call it a piece of land. Because Li Yun held up when we were in the desert city, it incidentally held up the earth with a radius of thousands of miles. The distance of 10,000 miles is not a small number, and it can be compared to some countries in the human race. Many ordinary people may not know that they live in the sky all their lives. He is indeed the strongest being in the Tianyuan world, and this kind of scene is intimidating. Shang Duxing discovered a lot of horrors through this piece of land floating in the void. Just the formation outside made his hair stand on end. This is definitely not an ordinary formation. It may be emperor level. It may even surpass it. Reached the emperor level. That's natural. The senior poster's strength is unfathomable. He can know everything in the world, including everything in the Blood Devil world. Senior poster knows everything. Baikan Hung said proudly. There are countless worlds in the world, just like the sand of the Ganges. Every minute and every second, worlds are being destroyed or reborn. Except for a few worlds standing at the top, the others the world has the possibility of being destroyed. Maybe it is internal factors, such as the blood demon realm. Maybe it is external factors, such as invasion from another world. But all the races in the Tianyuan realm, because of the existence of the Tianji Tower, have greatly increased their sense of security. Even if the earthly immortal world is watching with eager eyes, they are not worried about the world being destroyed. The only thing they worry about is whether the forces behind them will be impacted. If it were the blood demon realm, there would also be a Tianji Tower. Shang Duxing looked lonely, his lips parted lightly. The words are not finished yet. Suddenly, his expression changed, and he turned to look behind him. His face turned pale. A hint of horror flashed through his eyes, and he murmured. Why so fast? Senior Shang, what happened? Baikan Hung was confused and didn't know what happened. He came. Shang Duxing said in a deep voice. Just now, he noticed a familiar aura in the Tianyuan world. This aura belonged exclusively to the creatures in the blood demon realm. Now all the creatures in the blood demon realm are dead, except for him outside. There is only one heaven-burying emperor left. At this moment, I feel a familiar aura. Apart from the burying heaven emperor, there is no other candidate. He came. Bei. Chen Hung murmured something and said suspiciously, is it the burying emperor of the blood demon realm? Right. Shang Duxing nodded, then raised his steps and stepped into the deserted city. He said as he walked. It's too late. If the senior poster you mentioned is unwilling to take action, I'm afraid the Tianyuan world is also in danger of overthrowing. No way. Baikan Hung followed behind and underestimated in his heart. At this time, in the Tianji Tower, Ye Changming and the three of them were sitting uneasily. It's been a quarter of an hour. On weekdays, I and others have been in seclusion once, at least for decades, or even hundreds of thousands of years. I have never felt that a quarter of an hour can be so painful. Things are different now. Within a quarter of an hour, they sent several messages, but there was no response. They didn't know whether their ancestor had seen the message. It would be fine if you saw it. If you haven't seen it, it would be great fun. The zombie emperor even dared to perform blood sacrifices in his own world. How could other worlds be half-hearted and merciful? Senior. Ye Changming stood up. He took the lead in taking out a quasi-emperor level item and placed it in front of Li Yun. He asked, have our ancestors seen the message just sent by this junior? At this time, he couldn't help but hesitate. Just to verify whether the ancestor had seen his prompt, even if he took out a quasi-emperor level item, he would not feel any pain at all. As long as the ancestor is alive, everything can be said. If the ancestor dies, it will be useless to keep more things. Saw it? Li Yun waved his hand, signaling to the others to calm down. That's good. Ye Changming breathed a sigh of relief after hearing this. As long as the ancestor sees the news, there is still room for change. Although my ancestor has just become an emperor, he is still a great emperor, right? Facing the zombie emperor, even if he is defeated, it shouldn't be a big problem if he escapes. But Ye Kong didn't leave. Li Yun glanced at Ye Changming and said slowly, he has now started fighting with the subordinates of the burial emperor. As soon as these words came out, Ye Changming's heart, which had just been relieved, became suspended again. What the hell? Why didn't the ancestor leave? He had clearly reminded him, and also talked about the other party's strength. Why was the ancestor so obsessed with it and insisted on following him? The other party wants to fight to the death? The ancestor is so confused. Keep the Green Mountains here, and you are not afraid of running out of materials to burn. Such a simple truth has not been understood. Senior, then our ancestors. The leader of the Golden Crow clan spoke. From the conversation between the senior poster and Ye Changming just now, he felt a little bad feeling for no reason. My ancestor went with the ancestor of the Ye family. If ancestor Ye Changming didn't leave, wouldn't it be possible for our ancestor to stay? Didn't leave either. Li Yun arrived at random. This. The leader of the Golden Crow clan was speechless. The whole person was stunned on the spot, and he was confused. The two great emperors join forces to attack. Logically speaking, they should be invincible, but sometimes you have to look at who the enemy is on the opposite side. If it is the burial emperor, it's hard to say what the result will be. Senior, can you take action to save this junior ancestor? Ye Changming said. At this time, he really couldn't think of a better way. Is there anyone in the Tianyuan world who can compete with the burying emperor? Maybe there is. After all, when the true immortal heritage was born, many old monsters appeared. But he was not related to the Ye imperial clan, so he couldn't get on a conversation with him at all, let alone expect him to save his ancestor. At the moment, except for the senior TNG building master, he couldn't find a better candidate. Save your ancestor. Li Yun chuckled and glanced at the three people in front of him one by one. To be honest, he didn't have the idea of saving people. But he had to save the Tianyuan world. The Tianyuan world was his base. Someone would come. It was impossible for him to remain indifferent if the market was smashed, but the Tianyuan world was extremely huge and would not be destroyed for a while. He needed to consider how and when he would take action. Don't rush. Li Yun waved his hand, signaled to the outside world, and said softly, someone wants me to take action more, isn't he already here? Fantasy, me. Create a secret building at the beginning. Author, Mavericks Flying. Chapter 314. Who? Ye Changming was puzzled. He turned and looked outside the door. At this time, two people outside were standing side by side. One of them had red hair and red eyes, which were obvious signs of the Blood Demon clan. He looked anxious, wanting to step into the TNG tower. But it seemed to be blocked by an invisible barrier. I could only stand awkwardly outside the door and wait. Senior, is this person a businessman alone? Ye Changming reacted very quickly, and it didn't take long for him to think of the Blood Demon clansman who entered the Tianyuan world some time ago and ranked second on the Emperor list. If Shang Duxing hadn't appeared, they might not have been able to react so quickly. Good. Li Yun nodded. What is he here to do? The leader of the Golden Crow clan said indifferently. Because the Blood Demon realm has invaded the Tianyuan realm several times, they don't have the slightest favorable impression of any of the Blood Demon clan members, let alone the burying emperor who is still attacking the Tianyuan realm. Same as you. Li Yun said casually. This The expressions of the three of them were stagnant. The Lin clan leader pondered for a moment, and then he said slowly, since Shang Duxing dares to come here alone, he must not be the same person as the burying emperor. How about Senior letting him in? Li Yun didn't answer and glanced at the other two people. Ye Changming and the Golden Crow clan leader pursed their lips. They wanted to refuse, but in the end they didn't say anything. Because they thought of a very important point. That is, in Tianji Tower, everything has to pay a price. Let the seniors take action, it is estimated to be expensive. The world is destroyed behind Shang Duxing, and his hatred with the burying emperor is probably higher than anyone present, if he pleads with the seniors. Others people may be able to reap the benefits. At least. The arrival of Shang Duxing can also share a lot of pressure. Li Yun saw through the little thoughts of the three people, but did not say much. He waved his sleeves and said, "Then let him in." As soon as he finished speaking. Outside the Tianji Tower, Shang Duxing's expression changed. Before he could react, there was suddenly a terrifying pulling force, and then the world began to spin. When he came to his senses again, he had already reached an ancient and full of in the attic with the atmosphere of the avenue. Next to him, two humans and one monster looked indifferent to him, with a hint of hostility. Not far away on the other side, there was a man wearing a blue robe. The man, with a slender figure and a warm breath, is sitting on a bench, with his hair hanging down naturally, like a galaxy, with a little bit of starlight. It is very mysterious. The junior blood merchant is traveling alone and pays homage to the senior master of Tianji Tower. Shang Duxing composed himself. Among the four people, he quickly confirmed Li Yun's identity and immediately raised his hands and saluted. This judgment was not difficult to make. Except for Li Yun, the other three people present were all saints. He couldn't hide the quasi-emperor's spiritual thoughts from him at all. This was also thanks to Li Yun, who did not take them to heart and removed the suppression of Tianji Tower. After all, the strongest among these people is the quasi-emperor. In front of him, a single if you can crush them to death with your fingers, suppressing their cultivation is of no use anymore. It's just unnecessary. Li Yun nodded calmly. In front of him, the panel belonging to Shang Duxing appeared the moment the other party entered the Tianji building. Name, Shang Duxing. Strength, Quasi-Emperor Peak. Luck, the son of destiny in the Blood Demon realm, Nirvana state. Oh. On weekdays, there are not 10,000 but 8,000 people who enter the Tianji building. The four words son of destiny are not common. In addition to Fang Han, this is the second person to be clearly marked by the system. If you guessed wrong. In the world of blood demons, the buried emperor should be the big boss that Shang Duxing has to deal with. Unfortunately, Shang Duxing, the son of fate, missed. As the protagonist, he has never defeated the boss. I have to say, as the son of luck, Shang Duxing lost a lot of points to the protagonists. Of course, it cannot be ruled out that Shang Duxing's rise is a little slower. After all, he is only a quasi-emperor. Even if he tries his best, he cannot be the burying emperor. Opponent. Sure enough, he was able to escape the catastrophe of the world's destruction, and he could still come to Tianyuan realm, and immediately occupy the second position on the emperor's list. This businessman works alone, and he does have two skills. Li Yun thought in his heart. In his eyes, Shang Duxing only has two brushes. This son of luck, even the world behind him is gone. There is a big gap between him and Fang Han. His future achievements, if nothing unexpected happens, will also be slightly lower. Senior, Zhang Tian has arrived in Tianyuan realm. Soon, I am afraid that. After Shang Du saluted, he took a step forward and came to Li Yun. He pondered for a moment, took out an emperor's scripture and another emperor's scripture, and placed them on the table. Before coming, he had already learned about the rules of Tianji Tower through Bei Chen Hung. Therefore, he now takes out so many things without any hesitation. As long as he can deal with the zombie emperor and make him pay more, even his own life, he will not hesitate. Please also ask the senior poster to take action to prevent Zhang Tian from continuing to cause trouble. When they heard Shang Duxing's words, Ye Changming and others' eyes lit up. Sure enough, it was just as they expected. Shang Duxing had a deep hatred for Emperor Zhang Tian. When he made a move this time, it was an emperor's scripture and an emperor's book. Soldier, this shows his sincerity. In this way, the pressure on myself and others will be much less. Senior, if the burial emperor is not destroyed, the Tianyuan world will become restless day by day. Please ask Senior to take action to suppress this beast. Ye Changming agreed. At the same time, he took out a few exercises, held them in both hands, and sent them to Li Yun. With Ye Changming and Shang Duxing taking the lead, the remaining two people naturally couldn't pretend to be invisible, and immediately they all stood up and begged. The difference was that Shang Duxing had a clear purpose, as long as he killed Emperor Zhang Tian. But Ye Changming and others were very vague about whether to kill Emperor Zhang Tian. Their only purpose was to save their own family. Ancestor, as for whether Emperor Buried Heaven dies or not, it has little to do with them. If seniors are willing, they can just throw Emperor Buried Heaven into another world. Funeral. Li Yun glanced at the things in front of him without comment. He stood up, walked to the door of Tianji Tower, and looked up into the void. This period of time passed. What originally happened in the ancestral land of the Blood Demon clan has spread to the entire Tianyuan world. The cracks in the sky are crowded with the sky. Wind and clouds gather in the sky, and blood-colored clouds gather from all directions. The dull breath makes people breathless. The whole world seems to be broken, full of a sign before destruction. In the Tianyuan world, all races are in panic. In the mountains and fields, birds and beasts are galloping, and there is panic everywhere. Even the Zixuan world, which has just merged with the Tianyuan world, has also been affected. It's almost time. Li Yun murmured. He already knew about the burial emperor. If he wanted to take action, he could kill him before he crossed the border. But he did not choose to take action at that time. Instead, he kept wait. What he is waiting for is this opportunity, to use the reputation of the buried emperor to let the word Tianji Tower climb to a higher level again, so that the creatures in the earthly and immortal world can feel at ease. Because soon, he planned to bring the earthly immortal realm over and integrate it with the Tianyuan realm. Fantasy, me. Create a secret building at the beginning. Author, Mavericks Flying. Chapter 315. Outside world. Blood clouds filled the sky, accumulating quickly. Dense rain of blood poured down, casting a bloody sheen on the sky and the earth, which was extremely strange. Countless creatures all raised their heads and looked into the void, their expressions very solemn. What's going on here? In the deserted city, someone looked at the blood clouds in the sky and said in a deep voice. Divine punishment. It doesn't seem like it. What happened? Countless people were puzzled. Back then, a heavenly scourge appeared in the sky over the great desert city. Many people had seen it with their own eyes. Today, blood clouds appeared again in the sky, which was very similar to the scene that day. But there was less of an atmosphere of destruction. There was a trace of depression, as if a disaster was imminent. The sky is cracking, could someone want to destroy the world? A great sage murmured. When the world comes to an end, some strange phenomena will inevitably appear, but the Tianyuan world has never been destroyed in the past. If it was destroyed, they would not exist. Therefore, this kind of scene, in their lives, I can only rely on my own guesses, and there are no ancient books to refer to. No way. A human race great sage stood in the void, looked at the scene above his head, and said even the great emperor can only break the space at most, and there is still some way to go before the world is destroyed. Moreover, in the Tianyuan world, as long as the senior poster does not want to destroy the world, who else can do this? What if it's not the Tianyuan realm, but a terrifying creature from outside the realm? Someone said solemnly. Currently, in the Tianyuan world, the known worlds include the soul world, the blood demon world, the earthly immortal world, the purple mysterious world, etc. Among them, the earthly immortal world has the ability to destroy the world. If there is a true immortal, found the Tianyuan realm, and wanted to wipe out the Tianyuan realm while taking away his descendants, that is also reasonable. If so, the Tianyuan world may really be in catastrophe. The great sage who spoke just now said slowly. The coming of heaven's punishment will cover at most thousands or even hundreds of thousands of miles in radius, but will not cover the entire world. At this time, the blood clouds in the sky are endless and accompanied by terrifying cracks. The entire world, it's like a piece of cracked porcelain, and it seems that it will break in the next second. Just looking at this kind of sight makes people's hearts tremble. Not to mention provoking the person behind the scenes. At this time, in the entire Tianyuan world, it is estimated that only the senior poster has the ability to turn the tide from collapse. I don't know when. A quasi-emperor came to Dawang City. He did not hide his figure, and his heavy words cast a layer of haze on many people's hearts. There has been no movement in the Tianji building so far. They don't know what the predecessor of the building will do. He won't take action. The Tianyuan world is destroyed. All races of living beings will definitely not survive. But this is not necessarily true for the senior poster. He can combine the Zixuan world and the Tianyuan world into one, so it will be easy to live in the chaos. Tianyuan world for the senior poster, it is just dispensable. Boom. There was an explosion. Bloody thunder illuminated the world, as if the Milky Way had opened its gates. Endless thunder poured down from the sky, like a doomsday catastrophe. It swept every corner of the world. This is really destroying the world. The breath of death was overwhelming in the entire world. From the emperor to ordinary creatures, everyone felt uneasy. Immediately, several emperors walked out of the restricted area and headed towards the ancestral homeland of the Blood Demon clan. There were also a few, he rushed straight to the purple mysterious realm. This scene made many people feel cold. Even the emperor had different ideas. The emperor who went to the ancestral land of the Blood Demon tribe undoubtedly wanted to stop all this, but when he went to the purple, the great emperor of the mysterious realm, they are here to cause trouble. The stronger the person, the more aware he is of everything that happens in the chaos. Even if you haven't seen it with your own eyes, you still understand that a terrifying existence has come from outside the Tianyuan world, and it is not something that ordinary people can resist. At this time, it is the nature of every living being to seek good fortune and avoid evil. Boom. Another bright brilliance lit up. On the sky, there was a black halberd vibrating, emitting bright light, billions of fairy lights flying, shining for eternity, and the most terrifying aura broke out. That was Yakong. He fought fiercely with 4 terrifying creatures. The battle lasted for an unknown period of time. At this time, he was covered in blood and scarred. In some places, white bone stubble had leaked out, which was shocking. Next to him, the golden crow ancestor was also in bad condition. The chest was penetrated, and a large translucent hole appeared in the front and back, and golden blood flowed out. The 2 great emperors could no longer hold up. This scene made many people take a breath. With the 2 emperors, the person the emperor was fighting against was obviously not the instigator. Did the real mastermind push the 2 emperors into a desperate situation before he showed up? How terrifying should the real mastermind be? Roar. In the far sky. The real dragon roared, the dragon's claws stretched out, and the divine chain of time flew suddenly. It was the divine rule transformed into order, unparalleled in the world, shattering the sky, trying to kill Yekong. There was a bang. The euphorbia shook, the emperor's power was billions of feet, sweeping across several star fields, countless stars exploded, and the endless chains of gods were broken, destroying everything. Boom. There was another loud noise. Before many creatures could breathe a sigh of relief, they saw Yekong in the void, being slapped away by a unicorn. This palm was extremely terrifying, and even the emperor could not bear it. Maybe it was blocked intact. Yekong resisted the blow hard, his body was cracked and blood was flowing. The palm holding the euphorbia trembled slightly, making all the creatures in the Tianyuan world feel tight in their hearts. One person, the emperor, fell to such a point that even the emperor's soldiers could not hold on tightly. It is hard to imagine what kind of injuries he suffered. If the fight continues, the scene of the emperor's death may appear. Now, only the Ye family, the great emperor and the golden crow ancestor are present. If the great emperor really dies, it must be one of them. Is it Yekong or the golden crow ancestor? Roar. 4 completely different roars came out. The 4 divine beasts transformed by the burial emperor rushed towards Yekong from 4 directions with overwhelming killing power. They were so fast that they exploded the space. Chaos and mist surged. Even though they are hundreds of millions of miles apart, it's still scary. The news of the scene made countless human beings feel chilled. The first emperor to fall may be confirmed to be Yekong, who has just become the emperor of the Ye imperial clan. The 4 emperor-level creatures were besieging them, and even the golden crow ancestor, who was very close at hand, had no time to rescue them. After all, he couldn't even protect himself. At this time, even Yekong himself forced out a pale smile. He understood that this battle might be the last battle in his life, and he would fall as soon as he became emperor. Maybe he is the emperor who became emperor in the shortest time. Hold head high. The dragon's roar shook the sky. The phantom of a real dragon was the first to attack. The dragon was so majestic that it swallowed up the universe. It was invincible in the sky and on earth. The oppressive stars trembled and fell rapidly. A huge dragon claw filled the sky, fell from above, and grabbed Yekong. Just at the critical moment. Well. A soft sigh came. The voice was soft and flat, almost inaudible, but it resounded clearly in the ears of every living being, leaving countless people with a look of astonishment on their faces. This soft sigh fell to the ground, making it even more. The horrific scene came out. Countless people opened their eyes. I saw. The blood clouds in the sky were no longer rolling. Bloody thunder fell from the sky, but it was frozen in mid-air. Even a blow from a real dragon far away from the world. It was fixed 3 inches above Yekong's head. This is an extremely peaceful scene, like a picture scroll. The curtain was opened from mid-air, everything is so peaceful, and so terrifying. In the entire Tianyuan world, time seems to have been frozen. Is no longer passing. Only the thoughts of every living being can continue to think. In addition, even a finger cannot move. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Fantasy, me. Create a secret building at the beginning. Author, Mavericks Flying. Chapter 316. This. Yekong was frightened. In front of him, the real dragon's claw was very close. Once it fell, he would be severely injured even if he did not die. But at the critical moment, everything stopped. It's as if time is frozen, and the real dragon can't move forward even a little bit. What happened? Who is taking action? Can you actually set a time? Yekong looked pale, and countless doubts suddenly appeared in his mind. Not only him, but all the creatures in the world were stunned. There was an uproar in everyone's hearts at the same time. It was hard to believe what was happening in front of him. It was too unbelievable. From ancient times to the present, I have never heard that someone can freeze everything in an instant. You know, there are people at the level of the emperor among them. Doesn't this mean that if the person who takes action is willing, he can kill him in an instant? A great emperor? This is not the time, it seems, space. On the other side, the ancestor of the golden crow flew across the sky, his feathers all shining brightly, like gold. He maintained his attacking posture and was fixed in the void. A pair of eyes were full of shock. He was the first to discover that's wrong. If it were time, everyone's thinking would be frozen and stuck at that moment, but now I and others can still think. Time is still passing. This proves that the person who took action did not use the power of time, but the power of space. The power of space. 4 words appeared in the mind of the ancestor of Jinwu again. Master Tianji. In the whole world, it seems that the only one who can use the power of space is the mysterious senior poster, because he can combine the 2 worlds into one. If this doesn't prove that he understands the laws of space, I'm afraid there is no other person in the world who can do this. Wow! At this time, a sound like running water came. The whole world was trembling, and a breath of revival of all things swept across the universe and shook the heavens. Even Emperor Mon, Emperor Tai, and others in the purple mysterious realm, they were all alarmed. They stood up and looked in the direction of Tianyuan realm. All of them were moved. Boom! Thousands of rules are falling, chaos and mist are surging, and countless peaceful atmospheres are filling every corner of the universe. On the sky, dense cracks are recovering at a speed visible to the naked eye, and the boundless blood-colored cloud seemed to be invisible. He wiped it away with his palm. Just now, it seemed as if he had reached the Tianyuan realm at the end of the world. In an instant, everything ceased to exist. It seemed that the scene just now was all an illusion. Only the surroundings were still stagnant. Everything reminded them all the time that the scene just now was real, and the Tianyuan world was almost destroyed. With such strength, the senior poster should be taking action, right? Although I don't know who wants to destroy the Tianyuan world, the person who saves the Tianyuan world must be the master of Tianji. Many people thought in their minds. Who? At the same time, in the chaos, the boundless void was stagnant. Looking at the void, a majestic figure stood in the void. He opened his eyes, and his eyes were like a divine sword, splitting the eternity. The whole chaos seemed to be split in 2. He is the burial emperor from the blood demon realm. Obviously. He is powerful and invincible. He stands there with a cold face, staring at the Tianyuan realm, exuding the aura of immortality and eternity. The vast energy and blood are as powerful and magnificent as Wang Yang. His appearance is very young, he looks like he is only about 20 years old. His black hair is like a waterfall, naturally scattered on his crystal body. He stands there quietly, overlooking everything. Common people. Even if they don't move, they are so powerful that it makes people's hearts tremble. A wisp of breath seems to be able to collapse a universe. Everything is still, and the spiritual energy of the Tianyuan world flows backwards. Did someone from the Tianyuan world take action? The zombie emperor thought in his heart. He looked into the depths of the Tianyuan realm. His eyes were extremely captivating, like 2 rounds of red magic lamps, or more like 2 rounds of blood sun in the dark reincarnation, which can make people sink. Deep in the pupils, there seems to be a reincarnation playing out, as if burying endless creatures. The light is sharp and fascinating, making the emperor's heart tremble. He wears an emperor's robe, old and ancient, with 9 colors of brilliance flowing on it, illuminating all living beings. The power of the emperor is so frightening that it is obviously an imperial weapon. I don't know how many years have passed, but its power is still unpredictable. On his head, wearing an imperial crown, there is the aura of reincarnation, and the faint sound of worship from all races can be heard. The sound of chanting has cut through the time and space of eternity and resounded throughout the world. It is obvious. This is another imperial weapon. Before a great emperor takes action, two imperial weapons appear in the world. This is undoubtedly a very terrifying thing, making countless people tremble with fear. You know, the imperial weapon is a great emperor who has devoted his whole life to refining it. Often, a great emperor can only refining one weapon. Too much but not enough. As an emperor, it's impossible not to understand this taboo. But this Tianburial emperor has revealed something terrifying. Blocking my path, no matter who you are, will turn everything into nothing. The zombie emperor's expression was cold and solemn. He turned his eyes and glanced at the void. Everything around him was frozen. This was very strange. The four spirits he had condensed were frozen. This was the creation of his last life. The method of becoming an emperor. It can be undefeated at the same level. Even with one enemy and many, it can have the upper hand. But at this moment, it is motionless, like a dead thing. From this point of view, the person who takes action in secret is not weaker than him. Even a little stronger than him. As for whether the person who took action was an immortal, he had never thought about it. Although he had never been to Tianyuan world, he had observed through the space channel that this world was a little stronger than the blood demon world. But his strength is limited. It is impossible for a person at the level of an immortal to appear. Because of this, he would rather wander in chaos than step into the Tianyuan world. Entering this world is just one more layer of shackles. It would be of no benefit to anyone in his current state. It would be better to destroy it and turn it into a profound foundation for his impact on the fairyland. The accumulation of two worlds, once he becomes an emperor, he may be able to find a very long way in the fairyland. Even if it transcends all heavens and worlds, it is not impossible. Now that Emperor Zhang Tian spoke. Before the words were spoken, his brows suddenly frowned, and a bad premonition arose in his heart. Until now, he suddenly realized that it was not that the surrounding scenes were motionless, but that everything including himself seemed to be suppressed. If he had not spoken out, he might not have discovered all this until now. How can it be? The zombie emperor was horrified. He has been in nirvana for 10 lives and is undefeated at the same level. If it were not for the restrictions of the world, he thought that he would be invincible in all the heavens and all the worlds. How could he encounter a terrifying figure just after stepping into the bleeding demon realm? Could it be that Tianyuan are there really immortals in the world? Fantasy, me. Create a secret building at the beginning. Author, Mavericks Flying. Chapter 317. How could there be immortals in the Tianyuan world? The burial emperor stared at the Tianyuan realm without blinking. His eyes were captivating and revealed a sharp aura. He wanted to see the depth of the Tianyuan realm. Unfortunately, he was disappointed. The person behind the scenes was stronger than him. There are too many, and he can't find them at all. Are you looking for me? At this time, a clear voice came, echoing between heaven and earth. It reached the ears of all living beings. Countless people were shocked when they heard the voice, and their whole people became excited. They wanted to raise their heads and take a look. Look at how charming the owner of this voice is. After all, many people have guessed that the person who made the move is Master Tianji. But since Master Tianji appeared, there are really too few people who have seen Master Tianji. In the final analysis, still, there was a rule added to the Tianji Tower before, that is, people below the Holy Lord level cannot step into it. Although the Tianji Tower has never been famous, there are always people who discover this rule inadvertently. This is also what Li Yun thought about after all kinds of considerations. With the restrictions set, The reputation of Tianji Tower is getting bigger and bigger, and more people are coming, some with too low strength. The news they buy is worthless, and hundreds or even thousands of people can't even count. A little bit leaked from the fingertips of the Holy Land. Because of this, he blocked all the Holy Lord level figures. In Tianyuan world, people below the Holy Lord level accounted for 9 floors. In this way, people who have never seen the Master of Tianji before will not break through to the Holy Lord level in the future. It can be said that they will not be able to see the true face of the Master of Tianji in this life. Pity. Many people sighed in their hearts. Such a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, but they can't see the true face of Lushan, the Master of Tianji. Maybe. This is also the fundamental reason why the senior master of the building took action to imprison the void. You. The zombie emperor spoke and stared into the void. His expression was depressed. At some point, the oppression on his body seemed to be much lessened. At least he could speak. Who are you? The owner of Tianji. The 4 characters are like the roar of the heavenly sound of the avenue, thousands of auspicious colors, golden lotuses everywhere, and a golden Wanyang surges from the sky, covering the sky. The entire Tianyuan world is reflected in golden yellow, and the mountains and rivers are everything is covered with a layer of golden luster. The owner of Tianji. Good. A clear voice came out again. Above the golden Wanyang, a figure in green clothes stood tall and straight, with hunting robes and flying hair. He walked calmly. With every step, a golden lotus bloomed from under his feet. From the moment he appeared, that touch of cyan became the only one in the entire world. All the heavens and worlds were eclipsed by it and could not compete with it. Li Yun's body could not step out of the Tianji Tower, but he cut out a ray of light. Divine thought still has terrifying power. It has the strength of the true immortal realm. It can be said that it is effortless to suppress several great emperors. Wow! Li Yun walked slowly, but one step was hundreds of millions of miles away. Everything in front of him took the initiative to make way for him. Yekong and the real dragon separated in 2, and he stared blankly as they passed by. The silhouette of the sky stirred up huge waves in my heart, and I couldn't calm down for a long time. Is this the strength of the Tianji Tower? I have been to the Tianji Tower myself, but at that time, the Tianji Tower had a temperament as gentle as jade, and spoke elegantly, like a rich man who had read poetry and books. Young master, there is no huge aura leaking from his body. But see you again now. The master of Tianji in his heart has undergone a completely different change. It's like an ancient emperor who suddenly revived and walked out of the long river of time. Every move is full of energy. The Supreme Majesty seems to be able to dominate the heavens. No one can have the slightest thought of resistance in their hearts. Fairy. The senior poster is indeed an immortal. As soon as this idea appeared, it took root in the hearts of Yekong and Jinwu ancestor, and then spread crazily. But it didn't take long. The 2 people came to their senses at the same time. The master of Tianji Hall showed his immortal strength, and is he an immortal? You know. Before Ling Xiao went to Tianji Tower, countless people in the Tianyuan world thought that the owner of Tianji Tower had the power of the emperor. At that time, Ling Xiao was the quasi-emperor, so the senior owner showed the strength of the emperor. You can control all situations. Now the buried emperor has the strength of a half-step true immortal, so if the senior poster shows his immortal level strength, he can crush everything. If you think about it this way, it is terrifying to think about it. Every time, at the last moment, the senior poster Tianji happened to show that he was 1 level higher in strength than the opponent. What does this mean? It means that the senior poster's strength may be far more than that. He just didn't want to show too much. His strength is it is very possible that he is not just an immortal, but maybe stronger and has reached a point where people can only look up to him. Senior poster, sure enough, it's unfathomable. Yekong had mixed feelings in his heart. but then, he felt a little lucky. With the existence of the senior poster, even if people from the earthly immortal world come to kill them in the future, they will not be without the power to resist. As long as the senior poster gives an order, all the worlds will be destroyed. Who dares to disobey? Of course. The prerequisite is that the senior is willing. And, more importantly, we must first deal with the burial emperor in front of us. Immortal. The zombie emperor was deeply shocked. How is this possible? He has long understood the Tianyuan world. This world is not too powerful and it is impossible for an immortal to be born. How can an immortal come out of the Tianyuan world now? Even if it comes from other, how can the world and heaven not notice it? If the whole world rejects it, even an immortal will feel extremely depressed and will either destroy the whole world or leave this world. For example, the everlasting city. The everlasting city is because of its existence an immortal was unwilling to step into the Tianyuan realm, but stayed in the chaos near the Tianyuan realm. This way he could avoid the suppression of heavenly Dao in the Tianyuan realm. What world are you from? The zombie emperor spoke in a deep voice. The Tianji building master in front of him had an aura as deep as the sea, which was very terrifying. He was dressed in green clothes and made a hunting sound. His spirit was as rich as jade, as if his body was not in this time and space. He was in the past, the three time periods of the future and the present run through the past, present, and future. He exudes a majestic power for all eternity. The zombie emperor looked at Li Yun with surprise and joy in his heart. What surprised him was that he didn't know before that there was another statue in the Tianyuan world. Immortal. Fortunately, if there is an immortal in the Tianyuan world, he must not have become an immortal in this world, but an outsider who has used some means to deceive the heavenly senses. Since he can come here, he will definitely leave a space passage. If you can find this space passage, won't you be able to go to a terrifying world? In this way, your achievements will never stop at the peak of the great emperor. Even after becoming an immortal, it is not impossible to take a further step. Fantasy, me. Create a secret building at the beginning. Author, Mavericks Flying. Chapter 318. Want to know which world I come from? Li Yun stood with his hands behind his back, a sneer on his lips, and said indifferently, you can't afford this price. Is it? The zombie emperor despises all things and carries a self-centered attitude. Facing an immortal, he is still arrogant. Given time, he is confident that he can become an immortal. Now, he just lacks a platform, and this one suddenly appears in the eyes of the heavenly burying emperor. The world behind the Tianji Tower is a perfect platform. It can definitely help him take a crucial step. In all the worlds, no one can stop me from getting what I want, no. The zombie emperor spoke indifferently, the brilliance in his pupils was flowing, the red clouds were as sharp as the way of heaven, and the red Wang Yang burst out from his whole body. Submerged a large area of chaos. After 10 lives of nirvana, he almost became an immortal. Even in the face of as a true immortal, he doesn't have much awe. In his opinion, he should be on an equal footing with the other person. He is just restricted by the original world. If the other person has not released the spatial confinement, he may still be a little wary. But the opponent released his restraint. This undoubtedly gave him a chance to react. He was confident that he would not fall under the same move. Even if he was not hostile to the opponent, he still wanted to leave. I guess this person, even an immortal, can't keep himself. To reach this point, he still has some life-saving cards. Is it? Li Yun opened his mouth and spit out the same 2 words. His expression remained unchanged. He put his hands behind his back, raised his steps, and took a step forward. The moment his steps fell, there was a bang. A bright light illuminated the whole world. Extremely fascinating. As if the world was turned upside down, the entire Tianyuan world was roaring. Billions of laws fell from the sky and turned into waterfalls, densely packed and crowded in the void. The sacred light flowed, covering him and making him it is extremely majestic, like the Emperor of Heaven coming to the dust, possessing a kind of supreme power. There is no movement, just one step, but the power it exudes is shaking the world, invincible, invincible, sweeping everything. The whole chaos seems to collapse broken. Puff. The zombie emperor's expression changed. He suddenly raised his head. Before he could react, an overwhelming power suddenly fell down and pressed on his shoulders. For a moment, his face turned pale, his legs bent, and he almost knelt down. Falling to the ground. A mouthful of blood spit out, with the most powerful power, dyeing the chaos red. The scene was very sad and beautiful. This is impossible. The zombie emperor's face was pale, his breathing was rapid, and his whole body was bursting with infinite light. He wanted to get rid of the suppression, but no matter how hard he tried, the suppression on his body not only did not weaken, but became more terrifying. It seems that he can crush the heavens. How many years have passed? From the time he became emperor in his first life, he defeated all the geniuses along the way and swept away all the people of his generation. The imperial road was full of withered bones. Until one day, he climbed to the stronghold, surpassed all living beings, and looked down at the billions of living beings in the blood demon world. Those were some ancient restricted areas, and he didn't even pay attention to them. After becoming invincible, there was no enemy in the entire blood demon world. The whole world was silent, and he couldn't see the way forward. Only stepping into the fairyland was his only choice. Target. Originally, he thought there might be immortals in the Tianyuan world. But after he came into contact with the Tianyuan world, he suddenly realized that it was just wishful thinking. There were no immortals in the Tianyuan world, and they could not live forever. At this point, he came up with a terrible idea. That is not to go to the Tianyuan realm, but to rely on the blood demon realm to become an immortal. But the final result almost made him despair. He sacrificed blood to the whole world, but still did not become an immortal. Fortunately, he made one step closer, and the distance the fairyland is getting closer. It's just one step away. In his opinion, with this kind of strength, even if he can't be invincible in all the worlds, he can still talk to some immortals on an equal footing. But what he didn't expect is, just today when he wanted to destroy the Tianyuan world, he met a supreme true immortal. The other party didn't take any action. He just took one step and completely suppressed him with just his momentum. This was simply unbelievable. He was obviously only a hair away from a true immortal. But how could there be such a huge gap between him and a real immortal? In this world, nothing is impossible. Don't say that you are not a true immortal. You are an immortal, and you are just an ant. When you look down on all living beings like ants, little do you know that in the eyes of others, you are also an ant. So, you are not qualified to stand and speak in front of me. Li Yun whispered. The voice was not loud, but it resounded clearly in the ears of the burial emperor. Without reacting to him, Li Yun took another step forward. Boom! The supreme power exploded, Li Yun's whole body glowed, the entire Tianyuan world was shaking, the endless void collapsed, the earth fell, and countless stars shattered into powder in the sky. It was only one step, but it seemed to be destroying the world. It makes people unable to have any thoughts of resistance. The chaos completely exploded, and the boundless mist surged, setting off billions of waves, making a sound like a mountain roaring and a tsunami, stirring up countless small worlds. Kaka. In the dark, it seems that the universe is torn apart, causing unimaginable shock waves. And the boundless power is still turbulent, with Li Yun as the center, spreading in all directions. The scene is extremely horrifying. Boom! Chaos is split open, Qing dynasty the air rises, the turbid air descends, and there are particles that glow and shine continuously, as if the world is opening up. All creatures in any corner of the Tianyuan realm can see this shocking scene. Click. Click. The zombie emperor groaned, his whole body covered in blood, and the pressure on his body reached the extreme. His brows glowed, and he tried to resist, but to no avail. With a thud, the entire void was shocked. He knelt down on Li Yun in front of me. This scene made the whole world lose its voice. It was hard to believe what it was seeing. A man as powerful as the Burial Emperor, who almost became an immortal, actually knelt down. Moreover, just the Lord Tianji released his own power. What would have happened if he had used all his strength to create this scene? How dare you make me kneel down? The zombie emperor roared, and a huge black shadow appeared behind him. It was terrifying, like a giant beast, boundless, stretching the sky. As soon as it appeared again, it rushed over, trying to devour Li Yun. Pull him into the abyss of time. There, scenes of the blood demon world emerged, with the opening of heaven and earth, the birth of the world, the multiplication of all races, and finally the scene of destruction. It seemed to record the development of the entire world. History is generally very mysterious. If someone sinks into it, I am afraid that he will not be able to break out until death. It can be said that this is an illusory world evolved by the Burial Emperor, but it also has real history, which can make the Emperor irrecoverable. Very scary. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Fantasy, me. Create a secret building at the beginning. Author, Mavericks Flying. Chapter 319. Just a little trick. Li Yun's black hair was thick and scattered around his chest and back. His blue clothes were flowing. His expression was peaceful and calm, without any disturbance. His eyes were as deep as the stars. He stretched out one hand and flicked his fingers. Zheng. A sound of gold and iron clashed, and the sky exploded into pieces. Thousands of rays of light burst out, like countless divine swords, shooting out, splitting the sky into pieces, and everything turned into nothingness. Burial Sky, the Emperor's body was about to burst and his scalp was numb. Facing the aura of a supreme immortal, his blood was thundering and rushing violently, as if it was about to burn. The terrifying pressure was so pervasive that his bones were about to break. Exploded. Puff. 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 The sword light passed through one after another, and the huge impact knocked the zombie emperor hundreds of millions of miles away, and slammed into the depths of chaos. During the whole process, there was no resistance. Not far away. When Yekong and the Golden Crow ancestors saw this scene, the corners of their eyes twitched, and their hearts beat like drums, unsatisfactory. Terrible. Stronger than the buried emperor, a figure close to a true immortal. Are you so weak when facing the senior poster? The gap between the two sides is so big that they are not even on the same level. If the senior poster is willing, he can probably suppress the other side with just a few blows. This idea just appeared. It hasn't fallen yet. I saw. In the void, Li Yun grabbed the palm he had just stretched out, and a symbol in his palm emitted thousands of feet of light, piercing through the boundless chaos. A figure covered in blood was forcefully captured. Li Yun is otherworldly, as if he is about to transform into a flying immortal and fly away. There is a kind of agility that does not belong to this world, like a banished immortal descending from the sky. With just one hand, the entire void was imprisoned, and the Burial Emperor was contained in the palm of his hand. There is a kind of domineering aura in the transcendental aura. In those deep eyes, there is a kind of domineering power that dominates the universe and looks down on all living things. Master Tianji and Emperor Zhang Tian, two figures who are almost equally at the top of the Tianyuan world. At this moment, a sharp contrast. Like an ancient painting, it will not fade after hundreds of millions of years. TNG landlord, you and I will never die. The zombie emperor roared. He drank loudly, and his whole body was covered in blood. The blow just now shattered most of his bones. The injuries on his body were extremely serious, but his eyes were still terrifying. As his eyes turned, the aura of reincarnation filled the air, allowing all things to go and die, and a simple altar appeared in front of him. The blood overflowed from it, containing the evil energy that reached the sky. There are countless innocent souls wailing. This was a creature from the blood demon realm. He sacrificed it and turned it into a fierce weapon. The moment it reappeared, the surrounding void collapsed. Although this altar is still an imperial weapon, to a certain extent, it has surpassed the imperial level. With a hint of immortal power, it makes people shudder. The zombie emperor was glowing all over, extremely bright, dripping with dark red blood, and fell onto the altar with an emperor level and a little immortal level power. Yekong and the Golden Crow ancestor were both horrified. They saw many pictures emerging on the altar, which were endless creatures in the blood demon world, including many heroes of an era. At this time, they all turned into sacrifices on the altar. This is a vast world. Finally. But because of the burial emperor, he became lifeless and became a wave in the long river of time. If this altar is fully activated, they had no doubts. The entire Tianyuan world may also be sacrificed. Senior poster. Yekong wanted to remind him. But he is powerless. He is now imprisoned. His consciousness cannot come out of his body, and he cannot even open his mouth. He can only watch the altar reappear in the world. Noisy. Li Yun spoke. He stretched out his other hand, and a golden light rushed out from his palm, turning into a big seal. It fell in the air and hit the altar hard, making a sound like a yellow bell. The altar was blown away. After traveling hundreds of millions of miles and still in the air, Li Yun punched a symbol and suppressed it. This altar is pretty good. Li Yun recalled the altar and took a look up and down. If he brought it back to the TNG building, he might be able to exchange for a lot of TNG points. As for using it himself, he had never thought about it. This altar is too evil. Taking it out by yourself would be detrimental to yourself. How can the image of Wei Guangzheng, the majestic master of TNG Tower, be used as an altar for the sacrifice of a whole world? You dare! The burial emperor was so angry that his eyes were about to burst. He spent his whole life to refine this altar. There is still a lot of room for growth in the future. If he becomes an immortal, this altar may be able to become an immortal weapon. But such an altar with unlimited potential was knocked out after less than a breath of sacrifice, and the mark he left on it was also brutally erased by the other party. No, he has his own mark. It means that this altar has nothing to do with him. Why don't I dare? Li Yun squinted from the corner of his eyes, glanced at the Emperor Zombie, and slapped him with another slap, which was printed on the opponent's chest. With a pop, bright blood flowers bloomed. The blood of the Emperor, with immeasurable power, spread out all over the void. The body of the buried Emperor, who had been severely injured, cracked again, his bones were broken to an unknown extent, and even his breath became sluggish. He became more inhaled and less outgoing. If he started with the heavy three-pointer, he would probably the burial emperor of Nirvana's 10th life may die before leaving the army. It was finally quiet. Li Yun took one look at his masterpiece and nodded with satisfaction. He glanced at the void one last time and waved his hand casually. The confinement of the Tianyuan world around him suddenly dissipated. And he himself, carrying the burial emperor, returned to TNG Tower. Call. In the first moment of recovery, Yekong let out a sigh of relief. Even now, his mood still cannot calm down for a long time. He and others fought against the buried emperor, but they couldn't even defeat the 4 divine beast guards set up by him. However, the senior poster took action and severely injured the opponent with one palm. This gap is almost disappointing. Senior poster, how far has his strength reached? The ancestor of the Golden Crow looked at the direction in which Li Yun was going and murmured. It's hard to say. Ye Kong pondered for a long time and said bitterly, but one thing is certain. What? The ancestor of Jinwu turned around and asked. Even a true immortal cannot deduce anything that happens in the heavens and the world. Ye Kong said slowly. In this way, Brother Ye also thinks that the senior poster is not a native creature of the Tianyuan world. The ancestor of the Golden Crow asked curiously. Even a true immortal cannot deduce the world, and Ye Kong's words just now have almost tacitly acknowledged that the strength of the master of Tianji is not as strong as a true immortal. With the world level of the Tianyuan world, such a person cannot be born. Supreme existence. This is just my personal speculation and cannot be taken seriously. Ye Kong shook his head. If the senior poster had only the strength of the great emperor, such a genius might appear in their Tianyuan world, but the senior poster's strength became stronger and stronger. This also made them feel more and more worried. The bottom line is getting worse. Such a terrifying character cannot appear in a small pond in the Tianyuan world. If it is not certain, the senior poster came from a supreme world, passed through the Tianyuan world, and came here to play in the human world. Fantasy, me. Create a secret building at the beginning. Author, Mavericks Flying. Chapter 320. The master of Tianji is indeed as rumored, and his strength is unfathomable. Just when Li Yun suppressed the burial emperor and brought him back to the Tianji tower. At this moment, outside the Tianyuan world. In the chaos. The eternal city of Tianhuang was shrouded in the mist of chaos, and terrifying runes were looming. Infinite fairy light flashes, and billions of colorful clouds burst out. Deep in the city, there is a palace, tall and majestic, surrounded by ancient trees, like an area that existed before the creation of the world, with thousands of atmospheres. It is very grand. One tree, a colorful sacred tree, takes root around the palace, hanging down various laws. It is like an old monster that has never been born, with an aura that makes people tremble and sway their souls. Between the palace and the ancient trees, there is a path paved with mutton fat white jade. Blooming with various colors of clouds, reflecting the mystery of the entire city. It is like a small independent world. You can often see the depths, and there are gorgeous lights rising into the night. All around you can see the birds singing, the fragrance of flowers, the green vegetation, and the mountains. Towering, it is like a city, but it is not an exaggeration to describe it as a continent. Countless creatures live on it. There are auspicious beasts roaring in the distance, divine birds singing in the sky, and occasionally you can see the blood rising to the sky. Humanoid creatures are walking in the void, their aura is overwhelming for all eternity. It is like a pure land outside the world. Under the peace, hidden is the ultimate terrifying strength. No one can imagine that outside the Tianyuan world, there is another one that transcends the restricted area. Power. At this time, over the Tianhuang Eternal City. A mysterious wave surged in the void, revealing the unrest in the heart of the person who spoke. In front of the palace. Under the white jade stone steps. Hongxian was wearing armor. Stood there respectfully, with a solemn expression. He was not surprised at all when he heard the voice of the city lord. He himself had been to the Tianji Tower himself. Although he did not see the owner of the Tianji Tower take action at the time, judging from the eyes of his late emperor, the other party is absolutely hidden, at least surpassing his own city lord. Now, hearing the words of the city lord, it undoubtedly confirms his guess. The strength of the senior master of Tianji House has indeed surpassed the city lord by a lot. The subordinate took the liberty to ask, from this battle, the city lord may be able to tell whether the strength of the master of Tianji is about to break through to the true immortal. Hongxian handed over his hand. He asked the doubts in his heart. In the entire Tianyuan world today, there are many people with the strength of the emperor, but true immortals are like a rarity. It seems that there are only two people, the Lord of the City and the Lord of the Tianji Tower. It is a bit inaccurate to say that there are two people. Talking about two creatures. It's hard to say what race the Lord Tianji is, but his own city lord is definitely not a human race. There are only two true immortals. The gap between them can affect the balance of the entire world. Hard to say. In the palace. A vague voice came out after a slight pause. Do you think that what Tianji Hall Master showed just now is all his strength? Is not it? Hongxian was shocked. From the words of the city lord, he seemed to have grasped an extremely important point. Just now, the entire Tianyuan world was frozen. This kind of strength is shocking. Is it possible that the senior Tianji building master still has something? Keep it? Ah! The lord of the everlasting city chuckled, and said in a faint voice, that's just the tip of his iceberg. Even. The words paused for a moment. Came again. From the beginning to the end, the master of Tianji has never shown his face. What you see is just a wisp of his spiritual thoughts. Even I cannot guess what his strength is. There was a hint of frustration in these words. Before, the Lord of Tianhuang Everlasting City thought that he was also a true immortal. Although his life was approaching, his strength was there and he would not be much weaker than the Lord of Tianji. But when he learned that the other party was able to deduce the world he was in, his belief was shaken. Until the burial emperor appeared. The owner of the Tianji Tower walked out of the Tianji Tower with a wisp of spiritual thought, and suppressed a statue with his backhand. Only after the existence of Buletin Zhenxian did he understand how big the distance was between him and the owner of Tianji. This. A wisp of divine thought. Hongxian was stunned. Just now. Tianhuang Eternal City was not affected. They all saw everything that happened in the Tianyuan world. The master of the Tianji building was obviously full of blood, just like the Emperor of Heaven coming, and his divine power shook the ages. This kind of power, even if it is a true immortal, there was no need to give in too much. But the city lord of Tianhuang Eternal City told him that it was still not the full strength of Tianji Lozhu. It was just a wisp of divine will. This fact almost overturned his cognition. How did the senior poster do it? Is the way of heaven in Tianyuan world just a decoration? Your strength is too low to see the truth. According to my speculation, the real strength of the master of Tianji may be above that of a true immortal. The city lord of the everlasting city said with a solemn voice. Only this kind of people can predict everything about our hometown. Home. Hongxian pondered. He had already informed the city lord of the news about the purchase from Tianji Tower. After the city lord learned the news, he was silent for a long time. Anyone who knew that his lifelong pursuit had turned into a flower in the mirror, and the moon in the water, would probably not feel good. There is no hope for the future, and life is almost over. This is almost tantamount to pronouncing the city lord's death sentence. Lord City Lord, the senior poster once said that Tianyuan realm has been divided into three. Now we are. Hongxian asked in a low voice. They can't go to a more powerful world, and they don't like the lower world either. They are in an embarrassing situation of neither getting better nor getting worse. Wait a minute. Hearing this, the Lord of the Everlasting City seemed to have thought about it for a long time before speaking. His current situation is very bad. Running around will only break his seal and speed up the passage of longevity. Just in case he steps in rashly. In that world, he ended up facing off against the top figures in another world. After countless years of hard training, he was likely to turn into water overnight. Although staying in the Tianyuan world now is a bad idea, it has to be said that in a short time, he within, no need to worry about lifespan. Correct. Hongxian seemed to have thought of something, and he continued some time ago, The fusion of Zixuan realm and Tianyuan realm seemed to be the action of senior Tianji building master. Moreover, when my subordinates went to Tianji Tower, the senior poster hinted at something. Oh! Hearing Hongxuan's words, the Lord of the Everlasting City had a hint of curiosity in his voice and asked, "What's the matter?" The senior poster once said that the space passage in the earthly immortal realm will never appear again. Hongxian said word by word. Earthly immortal realm. The Lord of the Everlasting City muttered these three words. The reputation of the earthly immortal realm has spread throughout the Zixuan realm and Tianyuan realm during this period of time, even if the creatures from the other world have not yet crossed over. But many people already know some of the secrets in the earthly immortal world. Among these, naturally, the role of Tianji Tower is indispensable.